there. Oh, crap. I could have had it on this all along. Tell me about your, after that, did you get assigned to some other things and then finally get out of the Navy, or did you stay for a career?
Yeah, I stayed over there for the whole 2 years I was in the service. I spent, out of 2 years in the military, I spent 20 months and 11 days of it in Vietnam. And when I come back, I was on a plane with 300 other military people. Wouldn't let me tell my wife where I was going to land, when I was going to land. They landed us someplace out in the desert in California, put us in a closed cattle car, and drove us to Long Beach. And on the first weekend back, they put me on 48-hour gate guard duty.
What a bunch of jerks.
And I was so pissed off that when anything that come through that gate, I wrote them up, including the commanding officer of the base.
I don't blame you.
He came driving in and gave him the high sign and started on through, and that 45 came out, a round went in, and I pointed it to the back of his head, and I said, halt. And if he hadn't stopped, I'd have shot him. And I wrote him up for improper identification, and I had a stack of write-up papers about that thick, and that gunny sergeant that put me on that gate guard duty, when he came back, he just about died. And I said, and if you tear any of them up, I'll write you up. I was after 12 hours, they took me off the gate guard duty.
I guess so. You had a way to get off of that. Well, then when you got out of the service, did you come back this way over to Milton? You stayed in California?
I had met my wife, and we had gotten married between tours. I had 2 tours of Vietnam, and between the first one and the second one we got married. And the second one I went 10 days after we got married back to Vietnam. And I stayed in California, been there ever since.
Well, you're in Simi Valley, and that's a pretty nice area.
Yeah, it is.
Jerry, right?
Yep.
Jerry Chavers.
Yep.
From Milton, Florida originally.
Yep.
Related to all these Indians around here. Yeah. And had quite an experience at Quezon.
Yeah.
That's about the worst thing you've ever been in, isn't it?
Pretty much. Yeah. I had some pretty bad times, and we built, they brought in A4 night fighters. Those are the ones where there's 2 people sit side by side. We built bunkers for them out on the runways. 135 degree temperature out on that runway. We built those things. They were 8 feet wide, thick, 12 feet high, 300 feet long. We put those together, over 1 million hand-tightened bolts out in that weather. Stood those things up by hand, tightened them all up. All of it was done by hand. 2 days after we finished them, moved off, the 101st Airborne brought in a bunch of troops. I think it was a battalion moved in. And for the night, they stayed between those, because the A4s hadn't got there yet. They stayed in between those revetments we'd built. Charlie walked mortars through the bunkers, right down.
Oh.
And they sent us out to clean it up.
Oh, man.
And that was probably the worst thing I ever did. I mean, it was, to be honest, I wouldn't tell you this in front of the women, but one place there, they had taken the bodies out, but there was a guy's balls hanging on one of the revetments.
Just blew them apart.
Blew them apart. They just walked them right down the pathways, and where they had been camping in between the revetments, and they just dropped those mortars right in.
Wrong place to camp.
Wrong place to camp and stop. They'd been watching us from the hills, and they had those 180 millimeter mortars, and they just walked them right through there. There's no place to go, no place to hide, no place to get away, and they just walked through them.
Oh, that is so sad. That was 101st Airborne?
Yeah.
About what time of year was that? What year?
I was in
68?
It was in 68, and probably around March, probably March. Yeah, that was horrible.
So that was after Quezon.
No, that was before Quezon.
Quezon was when?
Oh.
Okay, well, we'll close it there.
Yeah, okay.
That's great.